Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Volcanic Yugioh deck profile for post-quarter century Bonanza with the latest Yu-Gi-Oh booster set. We've been given an easier way to, fix and make the Volcanic deck. Bonfire was one of those pricey cards for the Volcanic deck, but we now have an easier way to get it. So I figured let's enjoy it while we have 3 copies of the card. I've always been a fan of the Volcanics, and with some of the added support as well, in the form of cards like Promethean Princess, we have just easier ways to get some of the more needed cards for the extra deck as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. We'll go ahead and start off with the main deck monsters. For the Volcanic monsters, we run 1 copy of Volcanic Emperor. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by banishing 3 Pyro monsters or 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your face-up field and or graveyard. You can only special summon Emperor once per turn. And when this card is summoned this way, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each banished Pyro monster. Then you can set 1 Volcanic Trap card directly from your deck. And each time your opponent special summons a monster, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So just more burn damage on top of the initial setup that you can do with this card. Overall, burn damage being the big play, but also just getting a 3100 attack point big body monster on the field to make use of is a big help with the deck as well. But you really only need the 1 of copy since it's so easy to set up in the graveyard for you to special summon back with some of our other cards. For the 3 ofs for the Volcanic monsters, we run 3 copies of Volcanic Trooper. If it's normal or special summon, you can add 1 Volcanic card from your deck to your hand, except for Volcanic Trooper. You can discard 1 card to special summon 1 bomb token onto your opponent's field, and each time 1 is destroyed, its controller takes 500 damage. You can only use each effect of Volcanic Trooper once per turn. So for a good while there, I didn't actually know if we had any cards that could make the bomb token, since it was the latest OTS token that we got. So very, very cool that we can run this now officially in the deck to use with our Volcanic Trooper. Having that set up, but also just being able to add a Volcanic card off of this card's search power is a big help as well. But also having the discard power to give you more resources makes it more of a search and setup card to begin with as well. We also run 3 copies of Volcanic Rimfire. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate one of the following effects. You can only use each of the following effects of Rimfire once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard to send 1 Volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard except Rimfire. So another way to set up our Volcanic Emperor in the graveyard. Or you can banish 1 Blaze Accelerator card from face up on your field or graveyard to place 1 Blaze Accelerator continuous spell or trap from your hand or deck face up on the field. This can get around some of the setup needed as well for cards that we use, including our Volcanic Blaze Accelerator, since this card needs to be activated by sending a Blaze Accelerator card from your hand or deck or face up on the field of the graveyard. But you can use Rimfire to basically get around that by banishing a Blaze Accelerator card from your field or graveyard to place that card in a much more fast way instead. And 3 copies of Volcanic Scattershot. With this card, if it's sent to the graveyard, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. And if this card is sent to the graveyard by the effect of Blaze Accelerator, you can send 2 Volcanic Scattershots from your hand or deck to the graveyard to destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So on top of the destruction power, this will also be a 1500 attack point burn directly to your opponent as well. So definite 3 of, so you always have that setup to use for that quick play destruction, because you can use this card with our Blaze Accelerator reload, having the destruction take place on your opponent's turn thanks to this card. And also, lastly, for the Volcanics, 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket. When it's summoned, you can add 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So add back power as well for this card, being able to search out some of the needed cards for the majority of the setup for what we do in this deck to begin with, and that being our Blaze Accelerator spell and traps. For the other fire support, I run 2 copies of Blaster Dragon Ruler of Infernos and 2 copies of Hida the Fire Channeler. Just more fire search and setup with both of these cards, whether you go for a banish resource with Blaster, setting up more banished pyro monsters to use with Volcanic Emperor, or even just the send power of setting up other Volcanics in the graveyard for you to use with both of these cards, providing search and special summon thanks to that also. For the spells, we're running 3 copies of Bonfire. Like I said, this card was reprinted in the quarter century Bonanza set. So easier access with this card's effect just being to add 1 level 4 lower pyro monster from your deck to your hand. You can activate 1 Bonfire per turn, but it can search out the good majority of our Volcanic monsters. So it's a definite 3 of just needing that specific card from our deck to our hand to use. We also run the 3 copies of Fire Ejection. You send one Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then if you send a Volcanic monster, you can apply one of these effects. Inflict damage to your opponent equal to its level times 100. Or special summon one bomb token to your opponent's field. Each time one is destroyed, its controller takes 500 damage. So another resource to get our token onto the field as well. And with this card being a means to set up our bigger boss monster as well, since it just says to send a Pyro monster, we can send this card and then inflict damage to our opponent equal to its level times 100. So that's an 800 burn, while also being able to set up our Volcanic Emperor. The 3 copies of Volcanic Blaze Accelerator, along with the 1 copy of the original Blaze Accelerator. This is more of a send-off cost for the Volcanic Blaze Accelerator, and also to use our Rimfire to get around the set and setup using the original Blaze Accelerator, which we can search off of other cards like our Volcanic Rocket. With Blaze Accelerator, having this card as well, you can only control one once per turn. During your main phase, you can special summon one Volcanic monster from your hand, and once per turn, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, and send one Pyro monster from your deck to the graveyard to destroy that card. So using the actual Blaze Accelerator for a destruction setup, while also giving you special summon resources, because you may want to use the normal summon for one of your Volcanic monsters, and then the Blaze Accelerator to special summon out another one, having more and more search power with each one, depending on which one you used. We're also running 3 copies of Fire Recovery. It has a recycle option since we don't run too big of a monster count in the deck, using cards like Fire Recovery for a banish option to shuffle cards that are fire that are banished and or in your graveyard. So any of the Volcanics that may have gotten banished, we can use this card to shuffle them back and give us more draw power, while also being able to special summon fire monsters from our graveyard and sending a card from our hand to the graveyard to special summon that card as well. We also run 2 copies of Oil. You target up to 2 level 4 lower fire monsters with different names in your graveyard, add them to your hand. You can only activate 1 Oil per turn, but it gives you a search and setup resource as well. I only run the 2 though, because it is more of a late game setup. You have to have your Volcanic cards in the graveyard set up, so Oil doesn't really help as much early game if you don't have cards in the graveyard to do so. And lastly, for the spells, 1 copy of 1-for-1 and 1 copy of Pot of Prosperity. Just extra deck usage, and then being able to special summon out onto the field are level 1 monsters, which in this case is the Rimfire, having a way to then just set this card in the graveyard for more of the Volcanic setup as well. For this card, if it's sent to the graveyard, being able to activate one of these effects, getting the if effect, so it won't miss timing either. For the traps, 3 copies of Blaze Accelerator Reload. This card's name becomes Tri-Blaze Accelerator while it's in the spell and trap card zone. During the main phase, you can send 1 Volcanic card from your hand to the graveyard. If you do, draw 1 card, and you can only use this effect of Reload once per turn. During the main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to send 1 Volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard. So with this card being in the graveyard as well, you could potentially use this quite well with the Fire Recovery, being able to target the fire monster in your graveyard, send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard so you can send the Accelerator Reload, banishing this card, then to send a Volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard. The send to the graveyard can then be used to send cards like our Scattershot. It was sent by the effect of a Blaze Accelerator, so you can send the additional 2 and have the destruction of your opponent's monsters ready for next turn. With the last of our traps being the 2 copies of Volcanic Inferno and the 1 copy of Rivalry of the Warlords. Now, the Volcanic Inferno is just another Volcanic card that can be set up with our Volcanic monsters on the field, having a monster effect negation, and then also having a burn damage by banishing Pyro monsters. Rivalry could be Goes in Match if you want instead, but most of the time we do just have Pyro monsters on the field, but with Goes in Match, you could just limit it to fire monsters also. For the extra deck, we have 1 copy of Sunlight Wolf for the fire monster recycle power from the graveyard, 2 copies of Duel Chimera for the fire attack boost on the field, 1 Heat of the Fire Charmer Ablaze, and the 1 Promethean Princess for more fire monster special summon power onto the field, the 1 copy of Relinquish Anima, the 1 copy of Almirage, along with the 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Phoenix, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Amphibious Swarm Ship Air Amblo Whale for just another fire monster to be able to summon onto the field by using our Promethean Princess. With our Xyz monsters being the 1 copy of Assembled Nightingale, the 1 Downed Magician, and the 1 Sky Crisis and Zeus Sky Thunder to finish off all the Xyz plays we can also go for as well. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, I mentioned it before, but we have more or less an easy setup with cards like Rimfire, because if this card's sent to the graveyard, you can activate one of these effects. So you can just normal summon out your Rimfire, go for the Link 1 summon of a Almirage, since it just says a normal summon monster with 1,000 or less attack. Then you can use this effect to banish this card to send 1 Volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for Rimfire, or you can banish a Blaze Accelerator card to place 1 as well. So let's say we have the initial search for that that card as well, we could either go for the setup of our Volcanics on the field using those monsters as well. So what we can do is we can start off the play with the summon of Volcanic Trooper, using this card to add Volcanic Rimfire from our deck to our hand, and then use the effect to send the Volcanic card, with this card being able to discard one card, to then special summon one bomb token to your opponent's field, and then you can use the effect of the Rimfire, if it's sent to the graveyard, to activate one of these effects. So with this card also having the banish play, then to be able to then use the send of a Volcanic monster, or banish a Blaze Accelerator card from your face on your field, or graveyard to place one as well. It all goes about how you want to set up those cards on the field as well. You can even just go for the send of the Rimfire off of the Trooper to get the bomb token. Then you can use your go-to spell, which would be your Fire Recovery if you have the reload in your hand. This can special summon the Rimfire back on the field to then do the same Link 1 play, and then have the Blaze Accelerator reload set up in the graveyard to go for the banish, to then on your opponent's turn have the 3 Scattershot play for a 1500 bird damage play, and then destruction of your opponent's monsters on the field as well. And since it's a trap, you can activate it when you want also. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. Very, very happy just with the ease, as I said, for some of the engine cards for the Volcanic deck readily being available now. And we'll enjoy 3 Bonfire for hopefully as long as we can. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira, Twig out.